Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be teaching you an important Algebra 2 topic, which is how to divide polynomials. So before we get on with the video, make sure you are subscribed to my channel for more math content coming your way. You can contact me for any questions you have and I'll make a video on it for you totally free. So without further ado, let's get started on how to divide polynomials. So when we have to divide polynomials, we're going to be using two methods. And the first method is called long division. So let's say we have this problem right here. We have 3x cubed minus 2x squared minus 13x plus 14 over x minus 2. So it's the same way that we used to have when we used to solve problems in like elementary school or middle school using long division of just integers. So we have a long division sign. Up here we're going to get a quotient, which means the answer. Inside the den, right, dividend. Inside the den goes the big number, the dividend. That's the numerator in this case. That's the number that's going to be divided by another number. So I'm sorry, I should have written this the other way. We're going to be taking this number and dividing it by this number. And our divisor is the number that goes on the outside. It is the smaller number that is going to be used to divide. We're going to divide this number, the dividend, by this number. So our numerator is the dividend and our denominator is the divisor. So according to what I just explained, we're going to rewrite the equation that we had in the format with the long division sign. So we have our divisor on the outside and the dividend on the inside. In other words, the denominator out here and the numerator inside. So now we're going to go ahead and start dividing this. So how we start is first we're going to go ahead and check if our dividend is accounted for. And what that means is that our exponents have to be decreasing, like have to go down in a descending order. So our first term should have, it's a cubed, it's a 3. Our second term is 2. Our third term is 1. There's like that invisible 1 up there, right? We don't usually write the 1 for an exponent because anything to the first power is just that number. So we have 3, 2, 1, and over here we have none, so that's 0. Or this can also be written as 14x to the 0. Anything to the 0 power is 1. 14 times 1 is 14, right? In other words, our exponents are descending. 3, 2, 1, and 0. And that means that we can start to solve this equation. Because if we did not have this dividend accounted for, then we would be missing a term that would be needed in the quotient. So we have an x here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by dividing this 3x cubed into the x. 3x cubed divided by x. And I'm just going to do this off to the side. So 3x cubed divided by x, we know by the power, by the rules of exponents, that to divide, we're going to subtract the exponents, right? So here I would have a 1. 3 minus 1 is 2, so I'm going to be left with 3x squared. I'm going to write it down here. So this 3x squared is my answer to this. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write that 3x squared up here above the second term, right? These 2's line up. So I'm going to write it above the second term. And what you'll notice is that every time you solve one of these division problems, your quotient or your answer will always be one exponent, the starting term of your quotient or your answer is always going to be one exponent less than the starting term in the dividend, right? So this is a 3, our exponent, and in our answer, it's a 2. It's always going to be one less. So now that I've gotten my 3x squared, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to distribute this to the x and the negative 2. And we're going to write it down here, just like you would do in normal long division with integers. So 3x squared times x is going to give me 3x cubed. And 3x squared minus 2, or I'm sorry, 3x squared times minus or times negative 2 is negative 6x squared. And now what you're going to do is you're going to take this and put it in parentheses, and you're going to subtract it from the two terms that are directly above it. So we're going to do 3x cubed minus 3x cubed and negative 2x squared minus 6x squared. So we're going to be subtracting the like terms. So here I have a 3x squared and a negative minus 3x squared. That cancels out, right? That's going to equal 0. And you'll notice that every time you continue and you're going to you're going to subtract your first terms, they're always going to cancel out. So you'll see what I mean as we keep going. But right now, these have to cancel out, otherwise it means that you did something wrong. So 3x cubed minus 3x cubed cancels out. I have negative 2x squared minus negative 6x squared. So whenever we minus or subtract a negative, it turns to adding, right? The two negatives kind of cancel each other out. So negative 2x squared plus 6x squared is going to give us 4x squared. So here we have our new first term. And now we're going to use this to divide with our first term over here. So this was the first term we used. Every time you're going to divide the first term over here into the first term that's over here. So I'm going to now do number 2, which is 4x squared divided by x. Like I mentioned, we're going to subtract these exponents according to the rules of exponents. So 4x squared divided by, there's a 1 right there, right? And there's also 1 right here. So 4 divided by 1 is 4. And x squared divided by x, or 2 minus 1, is going to be x to the first, or just x. So this is our next number that's going to be part of our quotient. So 4x comes up here, and it's positive, so we're going to be putting a plus sign. 3x squared plus 4x. And now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to distribute it to these two terms. Okay, one thing I did forget to mention is that when you do get this 4x squared, you have to bring down the next term. Only one term you bring down, because remember, we're only dealing with two terms at a time. So you bring down the next term only. So back to what we were doing. I have a 4x here, and I'm going to distribute it to this x and to this negative 2. So 4x times x, when we multiply it, we get 4x squared. And now we're going to do 4x minus 2, which is negative 8x. Put in parentheses and subtract. And I have 4x squared minus 4x squared. You'll notice again, those are canceling out, which means that you did it right. Your first ones will always cancel out. Then I have a negative 13 minus a negative 8. Like I said, the minus negative will turn into plus. So negative 13 plus 8x is negative 5x. Now I'm going to bring down my next term, which is plus 14. And I'm going to go ahead and now use our first term again to divide it into this first term that's over there. So we're going to write number 3, and we're going to say negative 5x over x. Or you can think of it as 1x, right? Negative 5 divided by 1 is negative 5. I'm going to write it below because I don't have enough room. So negative 5 divided by 1 is negative 5, and x divided by x, that will cancel out. So we're just left with this negative 5. So I'm going to write this negative 5 up here as part of our quotient again. And now we're going to distribute once more. So negative 5 times x is negative 5x, and negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. Parentheses and subtract. We have negative 5x minus negative 5x, which is the same as negative 5x plus 5x. Once again, that's going to cancel out. Negative 5 plus 5 is going to give us 0. And then we're left with 14 minus 10, right? This is a positive 10. So 14 minus 10 is 4. And now you see we have no more terms to bring down. And what that means is that this 4 is going to be our remainder. So now to write our final answer, we're going to be using this quotient, and we also have to include this remainder. And all we have to do is write 3x squared plus 4x minus 5, that's our quotient. And then how we incorporate this remainder into our answer, because that just can't be left behind, right? Otherwise this answer is incorrect. We're going to do plus 4 because it's positive, 4 over x minus 2. Like if we were dividing integers and we had a remainder left, right? When you divide that remainder with the divisor over here, that would be the decimal that you would put at the end of your number. And that's exactly what we're doing here. 4 over x minus 2 is our remainder, and when we multiply this quotient that we got to our divisor, you will get the dividend. So our next example using long division is x cubed plus 8 over x minus 2. And you'll notice right away that this is not accounted for. I'm not having any descending exponents. So what you do in this situation, and I'm just going to go ahead and write this in the long division format. Sorry if I wrote minus before, it's in plus. So x plus 2, and then we're going to be dividing that into, so we had before x cubed plus 8, right? However, there's no 2, 1, 0 like we had before. There's a 3 and there's a 0 for an exponent, right? X to the 0. However, we need a 2 and a 1. Otherwise, we're going to be missing out on terms that need to be going into the quotient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to account for this. And basically, all I have to do is rewrite the x squared and the x with a 0 in front of it. Because I don't have an x squared and I don't have an x. So I have 0x squared and 0x. But we do need to include that. So I'm going to write in the long division sign as the dividend, x cubed plus 0x squared plus 0x plus 8. And I'm going to erase this at the top just so I have room to write the quotient. So now we're going to go ahead with our process just like we did last time, and where we divide this first term into the first term of this equation. So I'm going to write 1, and I'm going to write x cubed over x. 3 minus 1 is 2, so I'm going to get x squared, and I'm going to write that above the second term to line up the exponents, and I'm going to go ahead and distribute these two terms over here in my divisor. So x squared times x gives me x cubed, and 2 times x squared gives me 2x squared. I'm going to put those in parentheses and subtract. Once again, our first terms are going to cancel out like they should. And then we have 0x squared minus 2x squared gives me negative 2x squared. Now I'm going to go ahead, do the same thing with my first term over here and the first term that's coming over here. And don't forget to bring down this next term. Remember, you only bring down one term at a time. So I'm going to go ahead and divide this negative 2x squared by x. And when I do so, we see negative 2 divided by 1 is negative 2. And x squared divided by x is just x. So now I'm going to write that up here as part of my quotient. Oh, I'm sorry, negative 2x. Remember, it's going to line up. So that's how you know if you make a mistake, right? I noticed there wasn't a squared over here, but I wrote it by accident up there, so I knew that that was not right. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute this with the terms in my divisor. Negative 2x times x is negative 2x squared. And negative 2x plus 2 is negative 4x. We're going to put that in parentheses and subtract negative 2x minus negative 2x squared is the same as negative 2x squared plus 2x squared. So these cancel, and don't just assume that they cancel. Make sure you actually check, because if you made a mistake, then you're not going to know and you're going to mess up the rest of it as well. So 0x minus negative 4x is 0 plus 4x, so that's 4x. I'm going to bring this down, pretend the arrow extends, and I'm going to bring the plus 8 over here. We're going to go ahead and divide our first terms. So 4x divided by x is going to give me 4. You don't always have to write this out on the side. Something like that is easy that you should be able to do in your head. That's just a way to save time on tests. So 4x over x is 4, so I'm going to write that up there, and now I'm going to go ahead and distribute. 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times 2 is 8. So now over here, I'm getting the exact same up here and up here, and this is going to cancel out this 0, right? Because 4x plus 8 minus 4x plus 8 is obviously going to be 0. And what this means is that I have no remainder. So this perfectly divides, right? If I was going to multiply this to this, I would get this, and I don't have a remainder at all. So my answer now is going to be x squared minus 2x plus 4. And that's it. And another thing you can think about is how I mentioned before, that when I multiply the quotient or the answer with my divisor, I'm going to get this. So because we're talking about polynomials, these are basically both factors. This might not be fully simplified, but these are basically both factors of this long polynomial, right? If I was going to factor that down, these would be 2 of my factors, because when I do multiply them back together, then I would end up getting that dividend. So one last point I want to make is that if you ever get a question that looks like this, so don't panic if you get this, because this is essentially the same thing as we've been doing. Remember that when something is to a negative power, it can also be written as 1 over that number with this power positive. So this can be rewritten as 8x cubed plus 10x squared minus 13x minus 20 times 1 over 2x plus 3 to the first power. To the first power will just mean this same thing. Anything to the first power is that number itself. So this means 1 over 2x plus 3. And now if I simplify this further, this whole thing times 1 is just this whole thing, right? So I'm going to multiply the numerators. I get 8x cubed plus 10x squared minus 13x minus 20. This is over our invisible 1. You can even see these cancel out, and you would be left with this as the numerator and then this as the denominator. So it's essentially the same thing that we've been doing, and you would just now put this into your long division setup and go ahead and do it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. This was part 1 of dividing polynomials, where I teach you guys the method of long division. So make sure you go ahead and check out the next video on my channel, which is part 2, where I teach you synthetic division, which is the second method that you use when dividing polynomials. Please subscribe to my channel if this is helping you. Give this video a big thumbs up and turn on your bell icon so you get notified every time I post a new video. I'll see you guys in part 2. Bye!